Welcome in to this Monday edition of Palmetto Sports Daily. I'm Carmine Jamay here in Greenville, joined by our cast of characters for the day, and we will get into some people missing prom for a hockey game. That's coming later in the Palmetto Sports Daily program here. But Kevin Bilodeau is over in the Charleston area and Tegan Brown in Myrtle Beach. But guys, we got to start off with the Atlanta Braves. How about the start that they're on? 25-10 record. Spencer Strider, the Clemson legend pitcher, made his season debut coming off the injury list. And he looked pretty good. Not his best, but, you know, he had some potential there. The only bad thing is Ronald Acuna Jr. is now on the injured list. And so he'll be out at least 10 days with a hamstring. Doesn't seem too serious, but you'd like to keep this momentum rolling after just sweeping the Colorado Rockies. This is the best start for the Atlanta Braves in 35 games since 1892. What a year that was, when the team was the Boston Bean Eaters, I believe. So questionable name. I think that would be a big minor league hit these days with a name like that, maybe like the Hub City Spartanburgers. But Kevin, how about the Atlanta Braves start to this season? And we're just continuing to believe in this team now. They continue to have the best record in the entire league, let alone their own division.
Yeah, it's been an amazing start for Atlanta so far, and getting Strider back, like you said, it wasn't his best stuff yesterday as he makes a season debut, but it was enough, and that's pretty much what this team needs at this point. If he can just kind of be the fourth starter for the majority of this season, and then maybe by late August, September, he starts to maybe get back to the way he was a couple of years ago. Even if he doesn't, if he's just a solid fourth starter, and he's a guy that you can bring in out of the bullpen during the playoffs, that's a huge win for the Braves. You mentioned Acuna going on the injured list. Just take your time with him. They've already got a 7-game lead in the NL East. There's no reason to rush him back. Make sure this guy is healthy. Once you get into late June, July, and going back towards August as well, you want him to be 100%. So everything just coming up Braves right now, Tegan.
Yeah, it really is. And, I think Strider's showing this weekend was at least promising of just what he's capable of in the future, maybe going back to that peak we really saw in his career just a few years ago. So I think he's on a good path there. As for recapping some more baseball from over the weekend, Coastal Carolina going from number 9 in the rankings to now number 8 after beating UNC last week, and then also beating Georgia Southern this weekend 2-1 in that series. They won the opener on Friday 8-7. That was a close one there. Just it came all the way down to the 9th inning. The Eagles had bases loaded, but luckily that Coastal defense was able to stop that. And then game 2, the Chants winning that one pretty easy, 14-4, run ruling Georgia Southern. And then once again, the Chants dropping the series finale. It continues to be a theme with this team. They dropped that one 7-4. Now I will throw in the caveat that the Chants and Eagles played a double header on Sunday because of the weather on Saturday, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But once again, just them dropping the finale. You hate to see it happen, especially as we get closer to the end of the season. But Coastal with a really exciting game this week, Carmine, because they're hosting Clemson. Of course, these teams played back in April. Coastal won that one, so I'm just kind of curious what you think of this matchup coming up. I know that we've talked a lot about Clemson and the struggles they've had lately, and I don't know if they'll be able to stop Coastal, but I'm curious what you think.
Well, I just think this matchup means so much more for Clemson than it does for Coastal Carolina, because Coastal's top 10 in the country. Clemson is reeling from just recently being in the dead last position in the ACC after starting top 20 in the country, moving up to right around top 10 by the time they beat the Gamecocks in the Palmetto Series 2-1. So this really means a lot if there's going to be any type of outside chance for Clemson baseball to make a run at making the NCAA tournament for the 4th consecutive year under head coach Eric Bakich, because he's been there for now his 4th season. So a really big game. We'll touch on that a little bit more right after the break, but I do want to talk about just Clemson baseball in general. Huge weekend for them, just winning their 2nd ACC series of the entire season. So now they have 2 wins and 6 losses in conference series so far this season. And they beat a very good Boston College team ranked top 20 in the country, 2-1, even scoring double-digit runs in the first inning of the Saturday game, which I'm told is because the banana ball curse has been lifted by the legend George Strait performing at Memorial Stadium. So we'll get into the superstitious nature of this success in a little bit. But yes, most importantly, Clemson baseball ripping the lid off the difficulties that they've had recently, scoring those double-digit runs in the first inning after losing a tough game one. Come back in game two with a 14-4 mercy rule win of a top 20 Boston College team in 7 innings, and then winning a close one 4-3 in the final game just yesterday to win the series. Here's Coach Eric Bakich and Jaron Purify about what this could mean to finish the season strong and try to make the NCAA tournament.
There's something to be said about a team who just won't say die, and I don't care what anyone says. There's no quit. Nobody's quit, and I don't have it in my DNA to ever quit. So we are going to keep fighting, and we know we still got work to be done, but we will be ready. Or at least ready for the challenge.
The motivation through showing up every day, being encouraging, just positive energy.
So, Kevin, I know it's not a great outlook, but you can only play who's in front of you. You can only do what you can to try and salvage the season. And at least this is a good sign for Clemson. Thanks to George Strait and a bunch of Clemson baseball players pitching in as well, to have some success and finally win another series. Their first conference series they've won in a month.
Yeah, and you said it's not a great outlook because they're so far behind the 8 ball at this point, but that's why tomorrow night's game is so important as Clemson takes on Coastal Carolina. We're going to talk more about that one coming up right after this right here on Palmetto Sports Daily.
Welcome back into this Monday edition of Palmetto Sports Daily. We're going to keep the baseball talk going because it is going to be a big night in Conway tomorrow. Coastal Carolina taking on Clemson. This is, of course, one of the most anticipated matchups of the year when it comes to Coastal Carolina baseball. Lots of fans involved with both teams, fans of both teams. But Carmine, those Coastal fans are hoping for the season sweep. They got it last year. They're halfway there this year. Do you think there's anything that the Tigers did this weekend that gives you, some more hope as they go into the end of the season? Because we talked last week just about all those errors and those little mistakes that they keep making this season.
Yeah, I think they should be very confident coming off, like I said, that double-digit first inning as far as scoring against Boston College, and then also executing in the late game in a clutch situation to win a one-run game, which has been one of the biggest struggles as far as timely hitting and not making mistakes when you need to. That has been a big thing that Clemson has been messing up with all season. When it's time for the clutch, they leave runners on base and they make mistakes in the field, whether pitching or errors fielding. So I think that you saw what the ceiling of Clemson baseball can be over the weekend against a ranked team and just run ruling them in this case. And I also think that first meeting against Coastal was unfortunately a pivotal loss for Clemson because they were just coming off the first time they'd been swept in an ACC series all season at Notre Dame, which was the first surprise that we saw basically all season long. And then they went out and they fell behind by 3 runs in the beginning to Coastal. Then they had a 9-3 lead on Coastal. And then Coastal scored 8 runs in the final 3 innings to beat Clemson 11-9. And I think, you don't want to read too much into just one game. I think that could have really been a turning point toward more success. And rather than that, kind of set the stage coming off the Notre Dame difficulty and the difficulty hitting that they had in that series in late game situations, stranding runners on base. It kind of exacerbated the problem rather than turning things around in that midweek Coastal game. So I'm looking forward to seeing this matchup that was more highly anticipated, Tegan, at the start of the year before Clemson had a difficult season so far. But still, you saw what Clemson's capable of this weekend, and I think we're in for a close game tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think we totally are, and I'm glad you brought up the late comeback aspect, because that's something Coastal has done over and over again this season. We just saw it Friday night against Georgia Southern. You know, the Chants not able to get too much on the board early in the game, but then that 8th inning, just 5 runs there. They had a game last week where 6th inning they get 6 runs there. So, you know, this is a team that they've been able to find their rhythm. At one point during the game, it's just offensively they haven't been able to get out on top early, and that's something Kevin Schnall has addressed a ton this season, just saying, you know, it's not something we can really practice at practice. We just have to get hits, and we're just not getting those when we need to, Kevin.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that Clemson needs this game more going into this one tomorrow night. Coastal Carolina, a win, I don't even really think helps their RPI too much with where Clemson is at this point. I don't even know if it helps them, you know, get that regional host or super regional host. But Clemson, you know, we talked last block, Carmine, about how they're behind the 8 ball a little bit going into this last stretch of the season. But if you get a win on the road against a top 10 team, then you've got Florida State this weekend. You could take 3 right there. You've got USC Upstate next week. You should win that one. You go on the road to Virginia to close out the regular season. Realistically, as they're 28-20, if they can go into the ACC tournament with 34, 35 wins and just lose once over the next 2 weeks, then you've got yourself at least in the conversation. Most projections I've seen have them as the next 4 teams out or the first 4 teams out. So they're kind of right on the bubble, literally, for getting into the NCAA tournament. A good run here could go a long way. Then you never know. You get 2 or 3 wins in the ACC tournament, and you're right there. And you start seeing other teams fall a little bit. So it's not over for Clemson, but their margin of error over this last 2 weeks is razor, razor thin. And a loss against Coastal Carolina, I think, pretty much takes them out of the conversation. A win against Coastal Carolina, and I think they're right there, guys.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah, I totally
We'll have to see what happens. Yep. But hopefully, hey, you know, Eric Bakich is knocking on the door. He's not giving up. Lots of resiliency shown. Reminds me a little bit of the football season with such high expectations not coming to fruition. But as far as Clemson baseball, still a little time, Kevin, to turn things around and maybe back their way into the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. Now, as